We hear our first sounds from around 20 weeks in the womb. The sounds of her mother's heartbeat, her in and her out breath. From that point onwards, our ears are permanently turned on. This ability to hear, even when sleeping, enables us to sense and process the sounds in our environment. The magic of hearing happens when our outer ears funnel the vibrations in the air or water into our middle and inner ears, generating nerve impulses that are sent to the hearing center of our brain. Having two ears enables us to figure out how far and in which direction a sound is coming from, an ability we put to good use for orientation or to alert us to possible danger. The spectrum of sounds we hear typically range from 20 to 20,000 hertz. Hertz are a measure of frequency, and humans perceive these frequencies as pitch. The lower the hertz, the lower the frequency, or pitch. Infrasound are frequencies below 20 hertz, while frequencies higher than the upper audible limit are called ultrasound. Animals such as bats, dolphins, and whales use high-pitch ultrasound and echolocation to navigate and locate prey, while studies have indicated that rhinos and elephants use their low rumbling infrasound to communicate over long distances. Even our beautiful Earth has its own vibrational hum. At frequencies so low, they are 1,000 times lower than the hearing threshold of the human ear. To prevent sensory overload, humans have another ability: to selectively hear certain sounds and block out others. The din of voices in a restaurant might be suppressed in our consciousness, while the voice of the person we're talking to is filtered and amplified. This automatic assessment is essential in keeping us sane in a world of noise. Despite all the wonders of our hearing perception, we live in a highly visual world. In a hierarchy of senses, we rate our hearing as second. In a study undertaken by Hutmacher, it was found that when both visual and auditory stimuli were present, participants showed a strong tendency to respond to what they saw, with some participants reporting not having heard anything at all. However, hearing has one distinct advantage compared to sight. Sound waves propagate around objects, while light gets reflected by them, thus allowing us to hear sounds that are not in our line of sight. In a world of movement, sound is everywhere. Objects hitting or rubbing against each other, air vibrated by vocal cords, the rattling, squealing, honking noise of traffic, and the roar of the jet engine overhead. These human-generated noises are described as antrophony. But what do we hear when we go for a walk in the park, along a river, or in a native woodland? If we pay attention, do we hear the sound of rustling leaves, the pitter-patter of gentle rain, or the gurgling of streams? These natural sounds, or geophony, originate from the geophysical environment. Perhaps we hear the buzz of the bumblebee or the flapping wings of a bird. These are described as biophony, or the sounds produced by all living organisms. The collection of these different types of sounds, antrophony, geophony, and biophony, make up the soundscape as an area or landscape. Ecologists have, for some time now, been intrigued by these soundscapes and what they can tell us. Barney Krauss, the father of soundscape ecology, calls these soundscapes the narrative of place. He proposed the acoustic niche hypothesis, which explains how animals in a given habitat all find frequency niches and bandwidths in which to vocalize, so they stay out of each other's way. This hypothesis predicts species adjust their signals to minimize interference from sounds produced by other species. As their survival depends on their voices, they have to find clear channels to vocalize and not be drowned out by other animals or sounds in the ecosystem. By studying soundscapes and using visualizations of sound waves at various frequencies, known as spectrograms, we can see that as antrophony or human-generated noise increases, biophony, or the biological sound of the environment, decreases. Research from soundscape ecologists such as Brian Pianowski show that in a really diverse ecosystem, the spectrogram holds many different frequencies. These spectrograms act as signatures for these ecosystems. Soundscapes that contain a large degree of acoustic frequency diversity are referred to as hi-fi. These sounds can be heard clearly and are not masked or crowded. These are healthy, intact ecosystems such as virgin rainforests. In lo-fi soundscapes, one frequency spectrum, often low frequencies such as in urban environments, dominates and distant sounds cannot be discerned. Even chopping a few trees in a forest can have an effect on the soundscape and cause the forest to sound very different. Of course, even in diverse ecosystems, the soundscapes of ecosystems also change over time. The ecologists, therefore, are capturing a snapshot or a single moment with these audio recorders. There is another world happening beyond our vision. Animals know this all too well. Birds use their song to attract mates, their voices to signal danger. Other animals pick up on this. The ears of a deer pricking with the click-click sound of a robin, warning a dog is nearby. By listening to our environment and recording the soundscape changes over time, we can learn so much about biodiversity and whether or not an ecosystem is healthy. We can tell you who's thriving, who's struggling, and who's not there anymore. Have new invasive species arrived? Have birds changed their migration pattern due to climate change? These sound snapshots can be used to monitor how the environment is changing. Sounds of the urban environment have an effect on humans too. Pianowski ponders that we are so removed from nature that we do not realize the sound that is all around us, forcing us to almost turn off our ears. In contrast, we are immediately soothed by nature's orchestra. The sounds of the waterfall, gushing stream, and birdsong are often used to help us sleep or meditate. Studies show these nature sounds physically alter our brain's connections, reducing our body's fight-or-flight instinct. Nature sounds build up the rest-digest response, helping our body to relax and fall asleep. Soundscapes can create a sense of place. They can have cultural value and meaning. But the soundscapes of the natural world also have the right to exist without benefit to humans. There is a growing global movement to protect nature, the rivers, mountains, forests, and other ecosystems by recognizing and bestowing legal rights to these entities. Just as corporations are considered to have rights in many countries, the global movement wants to grant rights to nature itself. This is a radical departure from the assumption that nature is someone's property under law, a resource to be used and degraded. In this context, soundscapes would be giving voice to these rights of nature, to these beautiful natural landscapes. They help us to understand what constitutes a healthy ecosystem and how to restore a degraded one. But first, we have to close our eyes, open our ears, and listen.